Okay. Hey, Randy, do you mind introducing yourself quickly?
Okay, I'm Randy Carey. I live in the St. Paul, Minnesota area. I have a background in software engineering. I obtained a degree in almost 30 years ago in that. Worked in the field, and about 10 years ago, I decided to go into. I liked web development a lot. Instead of as a hobby, shift more in that direction. And I stumbled upon Joomla. Joomla works really well from somebody with a software mind, and I can do everything I really want to do with Joomla. So I've been sticking with Joomla for a long time, and still there.
We've done things like this together on several occasions, and you always have an interesting angle on things. Like at last year's Joomla Chat conference, you talked about plugins and how they operate. A kind of a layer of Joomla that we don't really think about. What are you planning on talking about today?
I want to talk. Well, shall I start my little PowerPoint because I do start talking about what I'm going to talk about, or
Yeah, sure thing. Feel free
okay,
to jump in. You can share your screen.
okay. I'll share my screen and I'll start from there. Okay, so basically, after the conversation we had last week, I wanted to talk a bit about adding value. Those of us who develop Joomla sites for clients, and the added value that I usually do is more on the custom development and user experience. So I want to tie those two things in. So adding value beyond just building websites. My approach is on customization, tailoring the user experience of the CMS, and designing for content strategy. About myself, quickly, I like biking. I bike a lot. I also keep a room full of aquariums. I've got 70 to 80 aquariums, and I work on breeding fish, that sort of thing.
Wait.
Those
Hold on. You have a room with 70 different aquariums?
70 some, yes. And some of them are more display, some are set up for breeding fish. Um, I've been doing this for about 30 years. And yeah,
We're gonna have you back to talk about that. That sounds fascinating.
I got plenty to talk about. And I do a lot of bike riding too. Last year I rode over 4,000 miles, which is like about 7,000 kilometers. So I spend a good number of hours doing that sort of thing. And I did want to give a plug for Endemol. We have a Joomla Cycling World Challenge. This is from 2019. There's one for 2020. If you go to endomondo.com and you look at the challenges and search for Joomla, please sign up. It's fun having all these people who are involved in Joomla and seeing how many miles. This is from last year's. There's a new one starting now. Just quick transitioning to that. I just had a chance to take on a big project that would have required a lot of hours. And unfortunately, it would have said I had to be at my desk certain times each week to field calls for stand-up meetings, that sort of thing. And even though it paid well, I realized I'm 63 and I wanted to do other things, my own personal projects, doing my bike riding. And I ended up saying, no, this isn't going to work for my lifestyle. And when I got done, I said, maybe I'm semi-retired now. And that doesn't mean that I'm stopping Joomla. I keep planning on working with Joomla a lot more. But I'm more pursuing the projects that I enjoy and want to do more than just chasing after the money. I'm in a situation in life where I can do more of that. And so some of the things I'll be talking about, sometimes you can't make as much money on some of these projects, but if it's something that's really a passion for me, you can donate a little bit of time. So I just wanted to cover that. I wanted to talk about adding value. And this came up, I think, more last week, or at least made me think about my thoughts. We think about projects, Joomla, WordPress, Drupal, that sort of thing. But really, the projects, I break them into two types. There's the do-it-yourselfers, and there's the client who wants to hire the experts. And I've lost a few clients in the past, and there's one consistency there. I'm never providing added value for them. I built their site, I'm hosting it, and we aren't really having a lot of communication. And they're usually on the low rung. They're only paying me a little bit for hosting. But the people who need me for my expertise, we're talking more often. I'm giving them value that they see above and beyond building a website. And they're going to be loyal to me. The other thing I lose clients is if somebody sells their business and the new person comes in, they don't know me, they don't feel the loyalty, and they leave. So the suggestion I'm saying there is, well, we have the downtime. This is, and it was brought up last week, this is the time to go out and talk to your clients and build up that rapport. Find out what more they might want that you can offer.
Yeah,
and go ahead.
We had for those that weren't here last week, we had a long conversation about business in the coronavirus era, and a lot of the people who were talking with us, including some of the people on the call again today, were advising to be much more proactive, and people were sharing ideas of how they were reaching out to actively show value to their customers.
So we all have to think, what is our added value? And if you don't know it, your client's not going to know it. And it could be different for different people. I've thought of a lot of things I could add value, but it's a lot of time intense things that I do better offering custom development. But you can offer marketing things. One of the biggest problems I see clients having is knowing the content, whether it's the words, whether it's getting videos or photographs. And if you can put together a team or yourself provide content for your clients, you can say, I not only build websites, but I'll interview you, come up with the content you need. And that's that extra added value. Because we know when people go to Wix and Weebly and those places, they're doing it themselves. But if you can add more value than just building a website, you're not going to get that do-it-yourselfer, but you're going to be able to rope in some people who are actually looking for that added value. So I like to recommend find your niche, what it is that you offer that's special. And you might have 10 different clients, candidate clients, but one of them you're going to connect with because you offer what they want. And it doesn't matter how many people you don't connect with, it's how many people you do connect with. And that's one of the challenges too, is people, I do everything. I do e-commerce, I do this and this and this. So my recommendation is know your added value, focus on the people who need that added value. And you can't do everything. If you try to do everything, you're not going to do it well. This is just kind of a quick little chart showing that in our field, there's people who develop the CMS, there's people who develop extensions, and then there's a site integrator who works with the client. And people think, oh, if you're a coder, you're only working in CMS development, or maybe you're building extensions. I think that because we're working with the client, we can provide something that the extension developers and the CMS developers can't do. They come up with a one-size-fits-all. We can understand our client, and each client's different, and we come up with a tailored added value. For me, it's doing more customization and user experience, that sort of thing. Yours might be marketing or helping them develop content, but we can tailor what we offer with our clients in a way that extension developers and CMSs, they're giving us the tools, but it's up to us to offer that extra special value that connects with a particular client. So I just want to summarize the added value that I provide for my clients. I do come from a software development background, and not everybody does. So this works for me. It's not always going to work for everybody, but I want to just summarize this, and then I can show some demos of some of the things I've done for the clients that don't have an NDA or non-disclosure for me. Clients quite often have challenging features. They want this. I want this and that. And I used to start saying, it can't be done. And then when I'm working with some bigger corporations, I realized they don't like hearing that. And if I really push myself, I almost always can deliver. So my policy is never say no right away. I will ask, okay, I want to know what you want. I'm going to do some research. I'm going to investigate, brainstorm, experiment. And I'll come back and tell you what I think I can do and what it's going to cost, how long it's going to take, all that sort of thing. And 90% of the time, I actually can give them a solution. It may be more expensive than what they want, but I'm giving them, I'm at least explaining why this is challenging. Or maybe it's really quick. I think of a really quick way. So that's what clients like. They don't just want the website, they want something tailored for them, or at least when you're going for the clients who are paying more dollars. they're more expecting that sort of thing. And maybe also the answer is I'm going to pull somebody else in who can do that for them, or I make a connection. But that's, my main thing is I don't say no right away. So my tool chest or whatever toolbox, I build custom components. I use Component Creator for that. It's free if you want to build them with just one table. You pay extra if you want to get some special features. I pay for the pro version. And I use Component Creator to build my own components that allow me to now build custom modules and allow me to automatically generate plugins.
So Randy, Component Creator, for those who may not be familiar, is an actual website, component-creator.com.
Correct. And you go there, you can create a free account, or you just do a Google search on Component Creator. There's another one called Component Builder, which has a little different slant. I've been working with Component Creator for a number of years. And they build very good components that are compliant with COM content, COM contact, a lot of the core components. If core components build a component a certain way, they try to build theirs the same way. So I use that. I build custom libraries using my IDE, which is an integrated development environment. Go ahead.
So Component Creator is good enough and produces output that is high quality enough that you're happy to use it for good paying customers. Maybe you modify the output a little bit, but Component Creator produces extensions that are high quality and trustworthy.
I use it as my starting point.
Okay.
And when I have interesting components, that's when I go ahead and I add. I can go ahead now and edit the model, the controller, the view, not just the layout files, where if I'm buying a third-party component, I can't touch that because the third-party person runs it. I can create new menu items, all those sorts of things. So Component Creator I use it to generate the initial core that talks to the database, gets me the fields that I want, has a bland layout that I always overwrite. So it's my starting point, but there's so much complexity in a component. It handles all that complexity, and I focus on the business coding part that needs to be coded. Same with my module tool and my tool for plugins. I'm mentioning these partially because it's in my retirement phase. I'm planning on pursuing more personal projects. And one of the personal projects I've had in the past that I haven't been able to resume is the IQ project. And I plan on making these available there. I'm also, because I just want to put something out there that works and people appreciate and has value. I don't know if I have a business model for it. So my plan is just to put it out there and let other people start using it. And
so could you explain that quickly? An IQ project?
IQ, ICUE. I came up with that in the late 2011 after I talked to my first Joomla User Group, or actually Joomla Day. And it stands for Improving the CMS User Experience. Came out IQ, hey, an intelligent approach to CMS management, that sort of a thing. And I've started developing tools that help improve the user experience, that from the client can actually, those of us who are site integrators can tailor that for the client, whereas regular extensions can't tailor specifically to clients. So it's a set of tools, and I will demo a couple of those once I get through with the PowerPoint. But I want to make those available. If people can see they like what I'm doing, make them available for other people to use. That's the plan. So this is just a quick summary here of the things I use in my customization. I wrote an article. A lot of this stuff is from 5 or more years ago that I'm talking about, and I'm trying to get back to it. I wrote an article for the JCM, Joomla Community Magazine, called about the client template. And I basically said, we have a user experience that the admin does, which is the basic, in this case was, I think, the ISIS or whatever, one of the standard admin templates with all the drop downs and all the different things. But we should give a simplified user experience for our client, because they don't need to know how to build a site. They just need to know how to manage the content. And the article was fairly popular, and I started going down this road of saying, let's build more user-friendly experience in the back end. Best you could do is provide product, and the person who's site integrator know then how to configure that product so that now the client sees only the options that's really relevant and important for them. Basically, that means that the role of we as site integrators, we not only build a site, but we need to configure the user experiences for our users to manage the website. So when they try to manage the website, what's the experience we give them? It's our role to make that simpler. At least that's my philosophy. And then content strategy. One of the reasons I have worked a lot in the ACL and role-based ACL is because it really helps. Content strategy in the web field is things like what content gets published. You have to have a strategy, know what we're going to be publishing, who makes those decisions, who puts them up there, how are they going to be displayed, and when do they come down? All those sorts of issues that not just technical, but also organizational. And a role-based ACL allows us to be able to say these people have certain access to the back end, and each one needs to be configured for an organization and their rules. Another concept is called the chunk content. Quite often we're used to this big screen that people can just enter whatever they want and format it whatever they want. And now the formatting is mixed in with the content. And if you've worked with a lot of clients, you see they put some ugly formatting in sometimes, very inconsistent. And so there's a strategy called we chunk it. We get just the information they want in the different chunks. They enter that and we format it the way they want. And I can give a demo of that. I wrote an article again in JCM, Channels, Chunks, and the Death of the Web Page in 2014. And I think right here, if you're interested in the things that I've talked about, I put it here, take a screenshot, capture those links. And
Randy,
I'm done. Go ahead.
This is something that has kind of crept into a few different CMSs. I think WordPress, for example, has their Gutenberg editor, which is very chunk or block based. And even in the Joomla world, things like the page builders that are popular now are very much thinking along the lines of chunks. There's an image chunk, there's a video chunk, there's a text chunk. Is that fair to say?
I'm not using page builders too much because I'm trying, well, you'll see, when you see how I approach it, I like just having them enter the content and not worrying about trying to adding more formatting. But I think you're right. I think it is getting more of that in the chunks, like that you can create this little part and drag it there and put it. It's like modules, that sort of thing. But I will, the best thing for me to do is to demo it. So I'm going to get out of PowerPoint right now. Okay. I have a site that I manage for someone that offers training classes, CEU classes for people who work in low voltage technologies. They have to get their certification, that sort of thing. So their money is basically selling, you sign up for these classes, and they're shifting now a lot more to webinars. They used to have more locations. And so in the back end, I've got, as soon as they log in, I've basically taken the ISIS template and I've simplified it, got rid of a lot of modules that don't need to be there, and give them what they want. And I've got a tool that helps build these more links. These are links directly to what they want, so they don't have to keep going through and navigating. And here's the links to their classes. Here's the links for locations. There's reports on instructors. They have, each class contains some modules. Here's the registrations, and then different types of page and content there. So if I clicked on this particular class, I'm going to see the list of the classes for that particular type. And so that's a lot simpler for them than trying to remember to navigate, that sort of thing. I'm also doing customization, that add in some custom fields. This is event booking, a third-party component, but I customize it, the layout, and add extra fields in there that's relevant for this particular client. They have certain modules. They want to list who the instructor is. They want to record whether or not it's filed with state. So this is some examples of what I'm doing to try to make their life easier. They came back to me recently. I also modify the list. So they want special reports. So when they have a class, they want to be able to have a sign-up form. They used to have to go and take all this information and put it in an Excel spreadsheet. Well, I created an automation that they click this, there's the sign-up sheet that people can, with all their branding or whatever they want. And I've got all these different, here, I even gave them a chance so they can build the certificates that they can print out, hand out to people for each particular class. This saves them a lot of time. And so they're willing to pay for the customization. And on the list view, I go ahead and edit it so I can have a column here for the different forms they can print or log whether or not they filed this with the state. So that's an example of some customization and trying to make their life a little easier. I'll go now to the chunking aspect. Here's an example of Karen Dunn has this client, and she came to me, outsourced to me to help develop some custom solution for what they needed. So this is an architectural firm, and they wanted to have portfolios listed, and they wanted a certain thing. So each category of their clients is listed in its own row. And at the end, they always want to have something called additional experiences. And so they have a special rule, and at the end, they have like on the boards, projects that's being worked on. So for all the different categories, healthcare, education, and on like that, they want all the pages to look consistent. Well, how do you actually tell a user if you give them a blank screen to be able to set this up? You really can't. And the chunking really comes into place is when we look at the particular page. So by chunking, I get a mock-up layout of how they want it to look. And I see, okay, they want to be able to have a link returning them back to the category. They have a title. They have a location. They have a carousel of several images related to this project. They have a quote. They have columns here, which are going to be responsive. So they'll shift down. And with different titles and text for each one, they have these different columns as well. And these are all responsive. How do you have a client build this with a blank screen and trying to put the responsive and be consistent for every individual project? The answer is I'm only going to collect the pieces of information they want. And then when they load this page, the page has all the smarts of designing things, laying things out the way they want. So here's an example of a layout for one of the portfolios. I've told you additional experience is a different type of a card that shows in the front. So if I click yes, you notice a lot of the fields go away and they only have the relevant fields there. If it's on the board, the state that it's being in development, they can say yes. We'll leave that no. And they have the name, the city, state, the category. And then this is what's called subforms, standard feature that was added on Joomla 3.6. To me, it's one of the most important features. I use it a lot in my development. It allows people to create and add or delete and actually reorder items. And whatever's in each particular item, I go ahead and define that with an XML file. So in this case, I have two fields. One, they can upload a file, and the other one, the file shows up. And this is where the carousel is. They can add, delete very quickly and easily. They can reorder, simple. And then the why, here's the chunk for the why, here's the chunk for the how, here's the chunk for the what, and the project details and all that sort of thing. The client quote has its own field, the attributes there, and they just go through and enter all the data for a new project, save it, and it automatically displays both in the list view and in the detailed page view, all formatted the way they want, and all they have to focus on is the content. Enter it in there. And this is what I refer to as chunking. Basically looking at the page, figuring out the different pieces, and then using like component builder to create the different fields. And then I go ahead and do my work with the custom coding to make it lay out both the way it should, and create some business rules too. If you have it this, maybe it can't be that sort of thing.
So Randy, this seems almost like the opposite approach of a page builder. With a page builder, you're giving almost unlimited layout control to the person creating the page. In the example you've shown us here, you're giving them zero layout control, that you're giving them yes, no choices most of the way down. And whoever designed the website is doing all the layout for them. Is that fair to say?
That's very fair to say. And that's probably why I don't work with web builders. I prefer this approach and clients who want this approach. And it's like, I actually was hired by one company to come in and fix their website that, or one of their affiliate websites that used a page builder, because every page was inconsistent. Links might have been underlined. They might have been a different color. They were just inconsistent in how they did all the different layouts, because every page you just design ad hoc. This way forces consistency. And the people who are managing this are not designers. They know their business, and I just allow them to put their information in and it shows up. And I think there's a branch in content strategy that would say this is the right way to approach. We aren't going back to the old, what was it, PageMaker or something, whatever. Microsoft used to come up with some of those, the old ways. It's basically saying use the CMS as a content management system and keep formatting separate from the content.
So whereas things like page builders or Squarespace or Wix or Weebly are handing over the keys to the entire site to the customer, this approach is for businesses that need some higher quality output and are willing to pay for it. And they're almost willing to pay to have the keys taken away from them and put in the hands of an expert who is laying out the content in the kind of high quality format that they need.
True. This probably wouldn't work for the pet store down the street that wants something really quick. And I think Jen Gress said last week that she's used Squarespace for some people. And so don't blame me. And I go with that. If you've got somebody who wants to do it themselves and they want something very simple, they don't want to worry about updating their components, extensions, and security issues, and just let somebody else handle it, then Wix and Weebly might be for them. That's why I said there's two clients, the do-it-yourselfers and the ones who look to us for added value. When you find your niche, I mean, when I'm adding value like this, obviously I'm only working with clients who are going to pay more, and they're more a pleasure to work with. And they're also the clients who stay with me, and well, I'm going to go build my own site in Wix or Weebly. They're not going to do that. So it's like I said, the niche, you may find 10 people and only one of them matches your niche. And that's what I'm looking for, is for people who, when I was looking to build more business, I was looking for people who wanted this sort of usability and structure.
There's a lot less churn in this kind of customer base. The customers who rely on you and trust you to build some more complicated tools. Perhaps the lower down in the market you are, the more constant the churn is.
That's true. Yeah, like I said, all the few customers I've lost, it's kind of funny. I lose a customer that's maybe paying me $25 a month for just basically maintaining their site on my hosting server. And then I got other people coming up with a whole lot bigger projects wanting my, I'm obviously not the right person for the low end. Too much maintenance maybe on my end to satisfy what they want, or they really don't really have much of a need. They just want to go as cheap as they can. They're not my client. And the point I wanted to tie in with last week's discussion, know what your added value is, go after that client and satisfy them. And of course, if you want to make more money, you need to figure out, you can give some value to people who have more money to spend. But if you're going for the person who's just starting their own little home business, they're not going to be able to pay you as much. So you kind of choose the bed you're lying in.
I had two conversations this morning with people who had purchased extensions at Joomla Shack, and both were arguing with me to say that, it should be a one-time purchase that they should pay $30, and then they should get lifetime access to the extension. And I spent a bit of time, maybe more time than I should have, talking them through the business model and how, say you become a customer for 10 years, you pay us $3 a year. That's not going to pay the bills of a North American developer for long.
That's right.
And at the end of the conversation, I basically said, hey, I don't think Joomla Shack is a good fit for you. If $3 a year is your budget for this. And both ended amicably, but I feel good about having moved them on. They're not the right customer. We're aiming at a higher value market. And it sounds like your advice, if you want to be in business through situations like this, is that we need to be aiming high, need to be aiming at the higher value customers who trust you and value what you do.
I had an assistant I paid when I had a big project, and he said, I want to do he was just graduated from college, says, I want to do what you do, because he heard me talking to clients on the phone, that sort of thing. And I'm kind of like, you know, like young guy trying to do this, you got to know how to shoot for the right angle and build your right niche. And I don't know if I could recommend you're going to make a long time career out of it unless you actually, you have to have, like I say, have to have that added value that people are going to pay for. And he might be able to develop it, but just coming out of college, in his case, I did not know it was the right thing. And he ended up getting a job somewhere else where they paid him to come in and do the 9-to-5 job. That's not for me anymore. Anyway, so if you think I want to do this for many years, first of all, we don't know what the whole CMS and web industry is going to be like 10 years from now. You have to roll with the punches, and whatever we can do now, they're going to automate more and more of it. So you always have to keep finding something new for your added value.
It's probably fair to say that organizations like the one you're showing us here on the screen probably don't care too much about what platform they're using.
Correct.
They're much more results driven.
Exactly. I remember talking to somebody a number of years ago who used to be a big Joomla speaker, that sort of thing, and no longer is in Joomla. And this person said, well, nobody's asking for Joomla anymore. I was like, well, there used to be a time when people were asking for that sort of thing. But based on the technology, and I think the only thing you hear people, they hear WordPress, so they ask for WordPress, but they aren't really asking for any of the other CMSs. But I, as a user of the CMS, I know what I can do with it. And it's object-oriented, it uses design patterns, and all these great things that as a software developer, I like using and being able to use. And I understand, I've taken a lot of time to learn it. So when they come to me, I tell them what I can offer. I don't tell them it's Joomla. I mean, I'll tell them it's Joomla, but I don't say I'm the Joomla developer. I get clients based on what I can offer on my connection with the client. And I use Joomla because it's the best way to help me give them what they want, not because they're asking for it.
Randy, this is very typical of the work you're doing at the moment. The question in the chat was, how do you approach building projects like this? And I think it was on a slide earlier, your approach was you start with componentcreator.com. You sketch out the maybe the database fields and the general outline of the project you want to build. It's an installable extension you get from Component Creator. And then you use your development skills to modify the view. Do you need to modify the forms and the database tables much, or does Component Creator take care of all that?
Yes, I do modify the forms, especially when something new comes in. I put some customization in, let's say. I can't just regenerate from Component Builder. I've already got it there. So I learned how to add the fields to the database, adjust the SQL file, the form XML files. When I do subforms, I create those. I have my development environment. I just got a button I click. Here's a template for the outlet, the layout for a subform, and I put in the right values. So I just build it and grow it from there. But Component Builder is to get all the hard part and the stuff that's mundane and common to all components. And then the business rules and things like that. I can modify the model. I can modify the controller and add extra tasks to what it can do. And I've worked with it enough, and I've walked through the code of other components so I know what they can do. And it's that expertise that kind of allows me to provide some very custom results.
As much as possible, we're going to try and allow people to jump in and ask questions. Christina, do you have your mic enabled? Do you have a question for Randy?
I just didn't want to interrupt him, sorry. So that's why.
Oh, no, go for it.
In chat. Randy, you were saying that you don't specifically let people know that you use Joomla. You just let them know that you're using a CMS. But the thing is, how do you approach people that want to have a WordPress specific site quoted? What do you do in that case?
First of all, it's not that I don't tell them about Joomla. It's just I don't promote that aspect because it doesn't usually matter. If somebody wants a WordPress, I will tell them my reasons why I work with Joomla, what I can do for them. And if they insist on WordPress, I don't have enough time to kind of go deep in WordPress like I go deep in Joomla. And it's like that whole niche thing. I'm willing to walk away because the people who want a Joomla site or want the features I can provide with Joomla, they're going to go with me. So I'm willing to say no to people. And I have said no. So I have not built a WordPress site ever. It's not that I'm anti-WordPress. It's just that I want to go deep in one. If I go deep in one, I can offer more to those people who want that. So that's my approach.
I completely agree with you. That's the way I feel too. I think Jen kind of expressed that last week too. It's like, I think when you start to spread yourself thin, it's hard for you to become a specialist. But like we mentioned in our discussion last week, it seems like WordPress, for some reason, whether it's because of better marketing or more marketing or whatever's out there, there are more and more specific people in Canada, at least where I'm at, that are asking for WordPress. And I'm doing exactly what you said. Usually when I quote a site, I have a page to begin with which explains Joomla, why it's really user-friendly, what certain aspects of it are really interesting and better for the user. But it still seems like WordPress is something that's becoming the best CMS here. I've had a few calls with experts within the business field here that have expressed that to me, and I don't agree with them, but it's kind of hard to make over their thinking when they already view that way.
I think, Randy, your response to that might be that those people selling themselves up specifically as WordPress developers are probably not going to be around too long. They're setting themselves up for long-term failure by specializing too much in the how rather than the why of what they're doing.
Yeah, I've worked in some software companies before, and if somebody tries to tell me you got to use this technology, they might want to more micromanage me, and I don't really care for that. And some people will work into that environment. I've learned I don't want to. But when it comes in WordPress, they're going after the do-it-yourselfers a lot. And that's not my market. And if you're any kind of an agency, it's not your market either. You want people who look to you. As far as WordPress, I mean, you don't want to badmouth another CMS, but I will point out to them that WordPress, of like 80% of all attacks from Security, I think came out with this, is against WordPress sites. And it's like, we're a Joomla site. I see all these attacks coming in that's trying to get at WordPress stuff, and you just make a simple plugin that says, as soon as they do that, I'm blocking that IP. And you have better security that way. All your extensions can run through the security of Joomla. The other thing is, though, for me, if I'm giving them a really simple user interface, I might show them an example of how easy I can make it. And when WordPress out of the box, even Joomla out of the box, can't compete with something simple like you got just little boxes with a few things that what the user can do and make their life very easy. And once they see how easy I can make it for them to manage their content, that's probably an appealing aspect if I can get their ear and eyes enough to show them the difference. So if you really feel you have added value, don't compete on the CMS, compete on the added value that you're providing.
Maybe the right answer is you don't want Joomla, you don't want WordPress, you want Randy.
Well, they look at it that way. And my best clients look at it that way.
So I'm curious. So Randy, you've you've talked quite a bit about having a very clearly defined niche in terms of the kind of customer you're after. We had a long user group last week talking on this topic, although we didn't touch on niches so much. Do we have anyone on the call who has defined themselves as clearly as Randy has? The kind of person who could say, my customer is X, Y, and Z, and this is the kind of person I go for repeatedly? Feel free to jump in if that describes you. Does anyone on the call have an example of being like Randy?
I have those that I won't work with. Like I have certain guidelines as to what I won't do.
That's good.
And that rules out a lot of people. So, and it's nice because like I don't do e-commerce. I don't like e-commerce. I don't like PCR compliance. I don't like any of that stuff. And there's plenty of other people that do. So like, it's totally all good with me to just go, especially since most of the people want that online store for like $500. So I'm not doing that. To me, an e-commerce should be like at least 10, maybe 20 grand. So anyways, so that's my little tidbit. I mostly work with small businesses because I don't like how medium and large businesses treat me. And because I don't add value to them. I just am like another employee that they want to, rake over the coals.
Okay, that is one of the disadvantages to working with the larger companies. They may be often colder, more paperwork, often harder to get paid. They put you on a 90-day invoice or longer.
So that's my little tidbit.
As soon as someone asks me when I'm talking to them and they say, well, I just want something really simple. So I'm like, well, nothing I build is really simple because everything requires to update all the different components and stuff on a monthly basis. So I just said, okay, well, maybe Wix is good for you. Maybe you should look at something else really simple that you can kind of do yourself. So I try and push it off that way. It's not until they say, well, what kind of sites do you build? Then I would go ahead and expand on it. Well, I built some very complicated sites, but it'll do a lot of marketing for you as opposed to just kind of be a business card.
That's interesting. Randy, do you find yourself getting a lot of inquiries from people like that? Are you in the situation where you're just saying, no, I'm not for you, nope, 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 nope? Is your inbox on your website full of people looking for those kind of sites?
Well, as I mentioned, where I am in life, I have not been trying to grow my business the last 2 years or so. So I haven't been getting, it's more like word of mouth sort of things. But yes, I do get those. And then sometimes they think, well, I'm going to pay you $500. And they like dangling this nice carrot in front of me or something. And it's like, well, I'm maybe not for you. Or if I can, do something really super quick, for that, I might do it, but that can be a problem with clients. So I don't know if I'm the right person to ask, am I getting hit with a lot of those? But if I do get hit, I basically tell them where I'm at, and you have to triage early. Don't waste your time, their time and my time.
Do you have any more examples that you're really proud of, work that you've done lately that you're able to share that's not under NDA?
That's kind of the problem. So the more interesting ones is the NDA ones. Trying to think. Yeah, I'll show one quick one related to the aquarium thing. I ran this event last year ago, and this is and I had clients ask for this sort of thing, and it's a style where you've got text on one side and images on the other, and it alternates. And I even can get it set up so there's different colors on that sort of thing. And so how do you do this to make it following that content strategy? And so here's my screen for that. I give a title for it.
So this is so the front page of this site is a custom extension you've built?
Yes. It's the content. I mean, this is the header, obviously, and menu. So, I mean, there's modules on here, but from this, this is, I think, a module as well. But then from this point on down, and this is really tricky when you got your content column, but you still want to have the background going all the way across, because that content column starts from, around here and goes straight down.
So to build this homepage, you went to Component Creator, exported an extension, and what you're seeing in the Joomla admin that you just showed us is a Component Creator piece of work.
Yes, and then the back end, I actually edit this. So I put, okay, I'm going to have a status and end dates and all that sort of category. I'm not using categories in this particular project, but I could. I even have a tab here where I've got different formatting details. And then this is, again, the subform. And each block has a place where I put the title, the content. Do I want to include a link? And if I say yes, well, the fields show up. If I say, the text, what the link is it a button or a link, a text link, and no. So it's kind of like a Swiss Army knife. Do I want to include a site item? Well, this one says yes, but I could go ahead and select what the site item is. Or I could put a quote in. And if I want to apply custom styling, I can do that as well.
So
go ahead.
This extension is called com block content. Is it something you've reused multiple times?
I have, but each site, the tricky part is, and I need to come up with a solution that's going to work universally before I make this available, and I would like to make it available for other people, is that breaking through that content column requires some knowing what the templates CSS classes are for setting up the content columns, and knowing how to, in this block here, make it all one color or this color, that sort of thing. So I haven't quite got it to the point where I can just give it to somebody else and they can, there's a little tweaking, and then you can, as far as adding the content, anybody can do that. And I can create new ones, I can delete them, and I can sort them. But when you have so much content, it's hard to sort. So I added a little button here, you click, and it collapses all the details except the title. They're still there, it just collapses it. Now it's very easy for me to take this and reorder it to some different location. And when I'm done, I can expand it and go and edit them all. And that's all this page is a set of blocks, which are using the subforms. I create them as I want, I order them as I want, and in each block, I can set background. I can say if it's going to be left side or right side, or use the page default, which is alternating.
How much customization have you done on top of the basic component creator?
Well, what do you mean? No, hours? I'm going to guess this could be a 15, 20 hour thing to first figure out how to get it to work. If I'm taking this now for another client, it wouldn't take nearly as long.
Okay. I'm wondering if the people listening could head over to Component Creator and export something like this with an hour or so's work.
This is using subforms, and I use subforms. I have my own approach for subforms and what Component Creator. That's the one area I differ with them on. So It's taken me a while to figure out how to use subforms for alternating and drag and drop, that sort of thing.
And by subform, you mean there's an area which is clearly defined, such as headlines, and inside there's multiple individual items. Okay,
let me explain it. Subform is a really important thing for a developer to know. In Joomla, we define our, not only do we hit the database, but we define our fields with an XML file, the forms file, form.xml or whatever it's going to be. In there, we have all these different field types. You've got integers, you've got calendars, you've got text areas, editors. You can create one of a type called subforms. And if you go type in Joomla fields, for instance, Joomla field types in Google, it'll come up right away showing here's all the list of field types you can use. If you do a subform, you tell where the definition of that subform is. And the definition is itself another XML file that will list things like title, text, and what fields they are in what order, what types they are. You can have attributes on them. So I've got, I can create radio buttons or this yes, no buttons. So what I do is I take a field, I call it a subform, but then I go ahead and create my own subform definitions. And there's ways you can even create layouts. So you can customize the layout of the way you edit subforms. And I've done that for clients when they have really specialized needs. That's going a little deep in the area. I mean, I could do a whole talk on subforms, and I have done it in the past. So to me, it's a very important feature, but it's really relevant mostly for developers.
Awesome. we had a whole bunch of requests to invite people on from Component Creator, and also you mentioned there was a rival or an alternative version?
Component Builder.
Component Builder. Okay, so I'll see if I can invite the people behind one of those two platforms on, and also people asking about subforms. I'll talk with you and see if I can get the subforms presentation. Is it online somewhere?
I gave it at the Chicago Joomla Day last year. I would have to do another live one, or it's one of the things eventually I would like to put together a video explaining it.
Yeah.
That's one of my personal projects that when I get the time, I'll work on it.
Randy, that's awesome. You've given us at least 2 ideas for future presentations. For those of you guys who are here, I saw many of you last week too. We really appreciate you coming. I don't think we're going to be out of lockdown anytime soon, so we're going to keep these coming. We have Peter Van Westen from Regular Labs joining us next week. I'm trying to be very open in that this is an experiment, and we're kind of playing it week by week and hearing your feedback. So I appreciate your ideas, and I will try and schedule some presentations based on the requests and ideas that you guys have been throwing out. Randy, SD did manage to find a link to your presentation about subforms on SlideShare.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if I put it up on SlideShare or she's got it, but that's great. She's got the link.
I think she did. Yeah.
Okay. Did she share it on the chat or whatever?
It's in the chat, yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, she put it up in the Joomla Day Chicago account on SlideShare.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Randy, thank you so much. For those of you that tuned in, we're going to be here every Thursday at the same time. Peter Van Westen from Regular Labs will be here next week. We'll keep on lining up, hopefully, people that speak as well as Randy does, and as interesting as he is.
Thank you.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Happy Easter.
Thanks.
Or happy long weekend. If I guess it doesn't even matter for most of us these days, right? We're not going out anywhere different, not doing anything different much.
What's a weekend?
I'm pretty sure I'm going to miss one of these webinars pretty soon, just not knowing it's Thursday.
Pete, I think we're all feeling that way right now. It's like basically, it's like we're in Groundhog Days, what my client said the other day. You just wake up and it's the same thing over and over again.
In our Slack, someone posted a picture of a clock, which doesn't tell the hours. It just
the minute.
It just does the days. I think Sunday is at the top, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Randy, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the rest of you guys coming. Have a great weekend, everyone.